And the last time he was here, he told me he wanted to change that nomenclature and that title to the ruling party. Well, he's won the general secretaryship, and he's here in flesh and blood this morning. We will have a conversation with him. Franklin, Fifi, Fiavi, Kwetey is my guest. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning.
Congratulations are in order.
Thank you very much, and good morning to all your many viewers.
How did you do it?
It was a lot of hard work. Lot of hard work. Because I was coming from behind, as you know. I mean, I was competing with two people who already had pretty much established themselves as far as the day-to-day party structure was concerned for the last several years. One as Deputy General Secretary in charge of operations, and the other as a Director of Elections. So I was coming clearly from the outside, so there was the need to do quite a lot of hard work. And within a short period, we had to literally cover almost every constituency and send our message and trust that our message was strong enough to be able to sway the delegates.
Brenda, play that instead for me.
It doesn't matter, because no group should feel perfect. There's no group that is ever going to be perfect. There's always going to be room for improvement. So people who fight for what is right, who want the right things done, who want the truth to be told, are people that must be encouraged. And we should have millions of supporters who also can listen to that call of our anthem that say, "Arise, arise for Ghana, ye patriots of the land." That's it.
But you have
party of patriots.
But you have Director of Elections every Ankra, and President General, Deputy General Secretary Peter Boamo Tokuno Doctor coming at you or with you in contest. What are your chances?
No, that's fine. I mean, we are a democratic party, so we clearly believe that all of us have things that we can, as it were, offer in order for the party to choose who the best is. What I would say is that, those are two very wonderful comrades. Elvis in particular has been like a brother, forever. So clearly respect to them, and I honor their desire to want to serve this party at the highest level. But there's always seniority. I feel I'm the senior of the three of them. In the first place, I've been right there from word go. Even 1992, I was chairman of the NDC on Inomine Place, the very Waterloo University of Ghana campus. At the time where people simply dared not associate with this party. Some of us. And at that time, I was actually in the final year in the university. I was in the economics department, and even if you knew the economic department, that actually was some of the headquarters of the MPP in terms of the lecturers and so on. But courage and love for this party, commitment to what you call our patriot that had served us from 1982, what work they have done. Some of us showed that dedication right from 92. And I've been there consistent every step of the way.
This was what you said a few weeks ago. Where's the courage? Is it still there?
Absolutely. It's still pretty much there. I mean, especially much more fueled by the difficulties we see in our country. The need for us to do everything possible to take the current government out of place in order to make sure we do whatever we can to continue the agenda of reconstructing our country and restoring the economic fortunes, and also what I call the leadership of this country, restore it back to the level where it ought to be. I think there's really a massive collapse as far as leadership is concerned, and this country deserves much
Did you
better.
dream of this day?
Yes.
Fifi Kwetey as General Secretary?
Yes. I mean, once I made up my mind that that's what I'm going to run for, basically I saw that was definitely going to be.
The two gentlemen, Dr. Peter Boamo Tokuno, Elvis Ankra, what's your plan for them? Do you have a plan?
Oh, I would say that we have spoken since then. First with Peter Tokuno. He, even before the election, we exchanged pleasantries and committed that no matter what happens, we definitely are going to work closely together. Subsequent to the election, we spoke again. In fact, yesterday I would say we even met personally at a function. That had a party gurus, and we were able to, as it were, speak more. So we definitely are looking at ways in which they also can help. The same for Elvis. Elvis, we spoke as well. And these are people who have contributed for this party, for so many years as well. So why not? It's a big tent. There's room to be able to have many people playing.
Are you satisfied with the team that was elected on Saturday?
Very much. Very much. It's almost as if the delegates clearly, I think the signal clearly that they were interested in nothing by the team that that will go out there and get power. And that is obviously what you saw. I mean, it is simply a group that they believe 100% go for it and leave no stone unturned until power becomes the reality.
What do you say to those who say the party is back in the hands of the grassroots?
Yeah, why not? Because, you know, it's always been my personal hope that somehow delegates would always reflect the will of the teaming supporters of the party.
Right.
There are instances where you are afraid that delegates somehow will go into a complete different path as opposed to what the masses want. So for me, for them to reflect this will of the teaming supporters, for me, it was just beautiful. I mean, so in fact, that's why we cannot help but salute this delegate. I mean, like somebody rightly said, they knew exactly what they wanted, and that's exactly what they've done. I mean, it's wonderful.
You want to restore, you want to tell the story, and then you want to recover and win power. How do you propose to do that? I mean, you have a crack team. You look at general chairman. Asied Winketia, you're looking at Chairman Zoka, you're looking at Yamin, you're looking at Sheriaite, Abanga, yourself, Hannah Bisu, Pablo, Sami Jemfi, Alaji. So you have a crack team with all their deputies. Does it look like an easy battle?
No, it's never going to be. It's never going to be at all. But you can see clearly that this is a team that's ready to give it everything we've got. For me, it reminds me of the 2005 team that emerged when we went for Congress in Koforido in 2005.
Right.
When I emerged to become the National Propaganda Secretary or the National Communication Officer. The same applied to Asidu Nketia emerging as General Secretary. Dr. Komunaji, the late, emerging as the chairman of the party. Amabi Iwado, the late as well, emerging as a women organizer. Haruna Idrisu, youth organizer. Ofuswan Pofu as organizer. So I feel this is actually a team that is showing the same level of determination. And I believe that this team will definitely give everything possible to make sure we fulfill the will of the teaming supporters of the party. But beyond the party, I feel at the moment NDC is a vehicle that the nation looks up to. I mean, to accomplish a rescue mission. So we need to, as it were, raise our level to the point that we can make the people of Ghana, whether they belong to a party or not, feel that this is a vehicle that we can trust to be able to do something very good for the people of Ghana.
What will be your charge first to your members and then to the Ghanaian public? Those who feel the pinch of the economy, those who feel pushed to the wall, those who feel that, look, things are not going the way it should go. What will be your charge to them, the two sets?
First to the members. I mean, to tell them that generals without an army are no useful. So what we need as leaders is to have what you call a proper army behind us. And that army is made up of millions of supporters. First and foremost, you have millions of executives down to the region, to the constituency and the branch level. Then, of course, you have our supporters. So we ask that they stand fully ready behind us, and they keep their trust in us, and we'll do everything possible to be in alignment with their desire. For the larger public out there, I would say that it's been very difficult 6 years, and we believe that we are in a position to do everything we can, to bring this nightmare to an end. In fact, on my journeys across the various constituencies, I kept telling them that for me, this period in our life reminds me of a story that the founder of our party, Flight Lieutenant Rollins, ever told me. I once asked him about why did you give your first daughter the name Ezaneto?
Right.
Ezaneto.
The darkness must cease.
Yeah, exactly. So he looked me in the eye and said, somewhere around 1977, he saw the darkness that had totally engulfed this country. It was like a nation without any hope. There was darkness everywhere. Politically, economically, the leadership was in total crisis. That's 2 years before he emerged as a leader. And effectively in his heart, the only thing he could think about was let the darkness come to an end. And that's actually the meaning of the name. Let the night come to an end, or let the darkness come to an end. So that was actually a prayer that he was expressing in giving that name to the first child. So I think really the period in which we are is the same. If not worse kind of darkness. To think that for the first time in our history, this country is actually in a situation where we cannot afford to pay our debt. The first time in our history that we have defaulted debt. That tells you really how terrible our situation is. You understand? It's not just the economic collapse. Actually, it's the leadership, the moral collapse. This this economic thing is just reflecting the total collapse on in the moral leadership of our country. And so there's a lot that's to be done. And we will remain humble and work hard and continue to be inspired by the need to make sure we bring this to an end.
Gabi Asario Tredako, some say he's a de facto prime minister. I'm sure you've read him. He said, your party has succeeded in electing the best of propagandists. I'm what do you call paraphrasing at this point. How do you take that comment?
No, I mean, not surprised at all. I mean, it's always been the case that anytime I emerge into anywhere, the first thing they do is to say that propagandists have emerged. When I was chosen to become Deputy Minister for Finance, they said, okay, the Finance Ministry was a propagandist group. Now I'm emerging as General Secretary. Oh, the party executive must be full of propagandists. I think basically it's just a show of desperation. I can understand their worry. The real truth is that this is a group that is going to do everything possible to ensure that we shine light over their darkness. I mean, we let the country see increasingly, I mean, the kind of complete moral decadence that they represent, the selfishness and the greed that they represent. I mean, the people who care only about themselves and don't care about the country. The deception that has gone on, I mean, for all these years. I mean, the resources that have been put in their hand and what a mess they have made of the country. And the fact that they even lack the humility to accept that they have been the cause of the problem. And I've sought over all these many months to continue deceiving the people that the real problem has been external. The problem has been either COVID or has been what's called Russia and Ukraine. I mean, that tells you the extent to which there is a complete collapse as far as leadership is concerned. Because you know what? I say all the time, leadership is not just about policies. For me, leadership essentially is about character. It's about credibility. And so when you have people who clearly have shown that they lack credibility, they lack character, I mean, that's a nation in trouble. And that's exactly what we have seen under Nana Akufo-Addo and Bawumia. Basically, individuals who clearly have shown that there's a complete collapse as far as character is concerned. No credibility. They believe that you win power through lies, you keep power through lies, you continue deceiving people, and that must come to an end. That must come to an end. So we will do everything possible. I personally, very, very inspired to make sure we do everything possible to rid this country of the plague that they represent. That's what, as far as I'm concerned, NPP, led by Nana Akufo-Addo Bawumia, is nothing but a plague on the conscience of this country. And we will do everything to make sure that we get this plague out of power.
What do you say to those who say you are not sociable, you are not reachable, you are arrogant, disrespectful, you are hard to reach, and that you can't do anything unique? What do you say to them?
I would say that it's part of the game, you know. I mean, when you're going for contests, you expect your opponents to try to say something, hoping that will stick. I mean, the fact that the delegates listen to all that and still give me a massive endorsement should tell you that the delegates saw through their lies. You understand me? The truth is that we are all very unique. And one thing I always insist on is that you must remain who you are. You must be authentic. You should not try to be fake. You should not try to be a hypocrite. You must be who you are. Anybody who has seen, anybody who has worked with me, who has gone close to me will tell you. If they say anything about me at all, the only thing is that you want things done well. That's all. But otherwise, apart from wanting things done well, I'm pretty much easy to relate to. Once you're telling the truth, you're working hard, it's no problem. The people who have a problem with me actually are people who want to do what's wrong. You want to do what's wrong, you definitely have an issue because we want things done well. That's all. But in terms of being reachable, being friendly, I really have no problem at all.
What's that one thing you want to fix about the NDC? Candidly.
To be honest, one of the biggest concerns I've had about my party is the fact that with the long association with the NPP, it's been my real worry that over time, even though a lot of the NDC people continue to, let's say, look at the NPP as, should I call the embodiment of what is wrong. Secretly, I feel some of them almost want me to be able to mimic the NPP. And that, for me, is a massive problem. Because the moment you reach a stage where NPP becomes a barometer, becomes a standard that you want to mimic, this nation is gone. This nation is gone. So for me, it's one of those very, very important things that we want to do. That it's true that there's no party that is all wrong and there's no party that is all right. But I believe historically, if there's one group that actually has been the bane of this country, it has been the NPP family. And it's been so even before independence and continues all the way to now. It's a group that has opposed almost everything that's positive in our history. They oppose even our independence. They oppose virtually every good thing that we wanted to do. Even the 1992 Constitution, they oppose it. They oppose VAT. And incidentally, the VAT that they oppose, today we are talking about Parliament, where the same president who led a demonstration against VAT in 1995, which led to the killing of about 5 people. That same president today, under his watch, is now coming to what? Increase the rate
by
of
2.5%.
By 2.5%. And he has not even got the humility to come out to the public and say, I apologize because I led a demonstration against VAT. So if years down the road, I'm bringing that same VAT at a high percent, forgive me. No such humility. And that tells you about the complete moral collapse that we have. No integrity, no truth, no humility. Now, so when I see NDC people somehow secretly wanting to mimic this plague, this darkness, that for me is a big concern. But as I say all the time, NDC is not perfect, but mimicking MPP should never.
But it's taking time for people to build that mimicry.
Yeah.
It will take time for you to wipe it off. You don't have too much time until the next election.
Agree. But we have to continue giving it a shot. We have to continue letting people be inspired by who we are, by our history. But the fact that this was a party that actually was formed in 1992, and it's a party that was formed by patriots. Not perfect, but people who genuinely put the nation at the forefront of what they wanted to do. And if we all can continue being inspired by that, then, we'll build a party that's strong. And we have millions of people who must constantly remember the story. But it's not easy when you're fighting for an opponent, and that opponent clearly is resulting to what I call the end justifies the means. Wanting at all moment to do anything at all without any conscience. A time comes when you are not careful, your own people something. Why not? We also can do the same thing. So being able to, as it were, encourage your people that keep it at the high level. Don't descend to the level where they are for the sake of our country, for the sake of our future. It's not easy, but we'll continue doing that.
The MPP at the Congress, in their solidarity message, mentioned that they were going to set up a faculty of election results collation in your NDC school. You, in the heat of the campaign, had also said that you were going to ensure that you collate results because you have done it before, and that the 2 persons who were contesting you failed at that duty, and which is why 2020 was lost. Would you take the MPP's offer?
I think that was quite a nice one. It's okay. I understand them. In politics, you need to find ways in which you can actually wind up your opponent a little bit. I would have done the same if I went to the Congress or the MPP and I knew that they have had issues with result collation. But the truth of the matter is that NDC in 2008 and 2012 was able to collate our result very early. And we did it very accurately as well. And that's how we stopped the MPP. In 2008, MPP tried actually to steal the election in the very strong room.
They did?
Well, absolutely. They tried changing the results in the strong room. They changed that of Bantama, changed Yaiso, and changed Siome. They wanted to actually change the whole result. We had to stop them in that final moment. And the only reason why we did was because we had already collated our result. And therefore, when they tried those shenanigans, we could expose them. And the tips are available. Anybody who saw what happened in the strong room in 2008 will remember that we literally busted them in that strong room. Now, so we have a history of at least having done that in two elections, over the last several elections. So it's not something that the party cannot do. And so the person, incidentally, who was in charge of collating those results, both in 08, first round and second round, and 12, was myself. So I told the delegate out there that under me as General Secretary, you can be sure that this situation of not collating results early is a thing of the past. It will not happen. It definitely will not happen. So MPP could, of course, try to tease us and mock us. I understand. We've given them room to do that. But we actually show to them that we're a party that was formed before them, and we know how to do the job.
Let's go to the campuses. Largely, we're trying to appeal to the younger generation because the larger population is made up of women and children.
Okay.
In the universities, TESCON seems to be shining more than TAME.
Okay.
And if you check the results, TESCON gets some more votes. So beyond collation of results, it's also marshalling the results or the electorate and trying to look attractive. What's your plan to rope in younger people so that they don't look at the NDC as a party of older people who are always on the front line?
Exactly. No, that's a very important question. And for me, that's an area where we want to really focus a lot. This is a party that historically has had issues, with especially the campuses. I remember in 1992 when I was emerging as a leader of NDC on campus, it was very difficult being able to get people to openly identify with the NDC. It was easier to identify with the NPP. and for all kinds of reasons. I think somehow the history of the PNDC being perceived as a group that was full of military people,
Right.
and that literally was intimidating or victimizing people, somehow made people who belong to a certain class to feel that this party cannot be our party. We'd rather prefer the opposition to this party. The same thing applies, for example, to the media. So media, right from the word go, have always been an ally of the NPP, opposed to us. And so even the same way, over the several years, how to be able to get that media to I look at us as not a group that you have to be antagonistic to. Has not always been easy. And so I would say that there are things that we ought to do as a party in order to make sure we can attract a lot more people. The issue about young people in particular, I think we've got very solid reasons to be able to make them, join us. I mean, if you watch the two parties well, apart from the fact that NPP makes quite a lot of noise, in terms of what you call policy capacity, NDC has proven over the years to be a much superior party. Absolutely. Much superior party. I mean, look, for example, about the economic performance of the two parties. I mean, you cannot compare what NPP has achieved anywhere close to what NDC has achieved. Not just now, but even the most in the past. We've always been much superior to the NPP. You know, not just in the economy, but also in governing this country. But the thing about NPP is that they are very good in terms of making a lot of loud noises. I mean, all these kind of slogans that they go about. Planting for food and job. When the minister in charge is planting more billboards for himself than he's planting for food. But basically that's who they are. Empty barrels who make a lot of noise. We use all kinds of slogans to deceive people. You have somebody who basically is just an ordinary person. And then people will create the impression that this person is some kind of magical person. And so basically that's what it is in our country. And some young people fall for this hype. Basically that's what it is. They fall for the hype. But basically it's often hype without substance. It's all kinds of cosmetic hype to deceive the country about the fact that they have some kind of superior capacity. We don't. So our job is to be able to move on to those campuses and engage the young people. I don't think the situation of going to campus and preaching to the converted has to be continued. I mean, there are people in the campus who identify in the NDC. That's wonderful. But our job is to go out and say we want to have a conversation with all of you. We don't just want to limit it to our supporters. We want to have come to campus, call together, whether you're NDC or MPP, whether you don't belong to any political party, and let you know exactly that we are the superior alternative. We have the superior ideas. And I believe young people are quite interested in a party that clearly shows that they have the superior capacity. We have the brighter ideas. And once we can do that, I think we can attract a lot more young people on campuses and even outside of campuses.
At the height of COVID, troops were deployed to the border towns, particularly the World Bank, Volta region, some places up north in the Front Plains area, in the name of COVID restrictions. And your party bemoaned that your people were being prevented from voting and from accessing even the registration points. The argument of the government at the time and some communicators was that people were coming from neighboring Togo and Ivory Coast to vote here. First, is it true that people come from Togo to vote here? And number two, how did your party take it and what do you intend to do?
You know, our friends in government have always had that habit of wanting to, prevent Ghanaians from voting. It's almost as
why
if,
would they do that?
Yeah, because as far as they are concerned, because, you know, Johnny, the truth, if you are anywhere near where, for example, I grew up, a lot of our people live and work across the border. A lot of our people live and work across the border. I grew up schooling across the border. Why? Because those are bigger schools than you have, for example, in our small towns.
Right.
So, for example, if you needed to go to the hospital, you go across the border because it's a bigger hospital that's available. If you wanted to...
With more facilities.
With more facility. If you wanted to shop, you can't travel all the way to Accra to come and shop. So you go across the border to shops to go and buy stuff. It's not just across the eastern border, also the same for the western border. You understand? So, it's not an issue of Togolese voting. It's an issue of Ghanaians who actually are living and working, having access. And there's a way to be able to establish that. You know, but that's what they do all the time. Anytime they have an opportunity, the first thing they want to do is to say that it's because of foreigners that we are losing. But the truth of the matter, in 2008, they did all that and they still lost power. They still lost power. And how did they do it? They blocked the border, the eastern border in particular. Claiming that they want to prevent Togolese, but still we managed to beat them and take power from them. So for me, it's a question of complete desperation on their part. Because unfortunately, that's who they are. They believe that anything has to be done, I mean, to be able to just get power. It doesn't matter what you do. You just have to do whatever to be able to get power. I see all the time now, if the desperation they have for holding on to power, if they have just a minimum of that desperation for building this country, for doing what is right for this country will be much better for it. But it looks like, as far as they are concerned, their whole obsession is anything for power. And unto what purpose? You take the power, and this is what we see as a country, a complete collapse of our country, which is a sad thing.
The 8 people who died in the election 2020 was reported widely around the country. Some say bloody elections, some say blood on the hand of the president.
Yeah.
Those people have not found justice. Their families have not found justice. How do you feel?
Feel very terrible, very terrible. I mean, in my rounds across the various constituencies, I arrived in Tichi myself, and I had a conversation with the delegate. I didn't know that one of them actually lost his son, the election. And so after it was question time, that's when I got to know, and I felt really, really terrible about that. So I feel as a party, we need to do everything possible to win power. That's the way, that's one of the first ways in which the souls of those people can actually find some peace, knowing that they did not die in vain, that their death, which was actually meant to help us to get power, must be achieved. I felt disappointed that somehow we bungled the processes in 2020 when clearly we had opportunity to at least have parliamentary leadership and possibly push the election into that second
You think
round.
that your party was complacent?
I think so. I think we should have done far better, especially the resource collation. And if we had done that just as we did in 2008, I'm sure we would have clearly established that we had won, especially the parliamentary election, and possibly gotten the election into a second round, which just like 2008, when we won the parliamentary in the first round and pushed it to the second round, we managed to come from behind and win power. I believe the same thing could have happened in 2020. But you can only do that when you have clear result, and unfortunately, we did not have it.
There's a draft constitutional instrument that says that in the coming election, we would only use the Ghana card. What do you say?
What I would say is that at all moments, the country must be minded, to make sure nothing is done to disenfranchise anybody. It's so important to appreciate that all people who are legitimately Ghanaians must be allowed to vote. Now, the situation where not everybody has got Ghana card, and somehow you're forcing to make Ghana card the only condition that would allow you to vote must be looked at again. The job of the Electoral Commission is to make sure all eligible Ghanaians are in a position to vote. But of course, we are dealing with a party, as you know already, whose obsession at all moments is power. And therefore, anything for them, they will do for power. So I would believe that Parliament is an arena where a lot of that conversation can be had. So we will make sure that we work together with our caucus in Parliament to see what it is we can do that will not allow for that process that is going to clearly lead to disenfranchisement of a lot of Ghanaians.
Are you against digitalization?
No, not at all.
That's what the government says they're doing.
Yeah,
they're trying to synchronize everything.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with synchronizing everything at all. But if I'm not able to get a Ghana card, and through no fault of mine, simply because the systems are not in a manner in which it's easy for me to have answers, you shouldn't be penalizing me by way of preventing me from voting. It's not my fault. You understand? So until it is pretty obvious that every single Ghanaian has been able to have access to that Ghana card, making the Ghana card the only way in which election can be done actually amounts to a deliberate attempt to disenfranchise people, and that should not be encouraged.
Ropa, it's been long. We have agreed, but we can't implement, or we're finding it difficult to implement. Would you push for it to be implemented in the 2024 elections?
I prefer not to express my personal sentiment on that. As a group, we clearly will have a good conversation about it. We need to first look at the details of its implementation. We want to see the resources that are needed to be able to make that a reality. And I think those would help us to be informed as to exactly how practicable it will be. Now, the fact that it's not been easy to push this through. We've been talking about this ROPA even before 2008 elections. And we're now in 2022, getting into 2024, we still haven't yet been able to do. It tells me that it's not really a very easy thing to do. You understand? So I would say that we'll see the big picture as a party, and on the back of that full picture, we'll then be able to know exactly what our position will
Will Fifi Kwetey take the NDC back to IPAC? Nana Yajanto says she misses you on the IPAC, and she wants you back as CPP.
Exactly. Now, what I would say also is that that's another position that this new group will have to have a conversation about. I believe, however, that you should, when you are in a battle, you must not take all options off. You must keep all options on the table, because you never can tell what the best, method for success will be. So I would say I will not rule it out completely. I would say that we need to have a conversation, and for example, have a proper review of our position until now, and be able to have an evaluation of the way forward, and be able to therefore make a determination what is the best way that will be able to help us.
Your decision was informed by the frosty relationship with the Electoral Commissioner, Jean Mensah.
That's true.
What do you think of Jean Mensah as Electoral Commissioner?
Oh, I think compared to Afarijan and even Charlotte to say, I think clearly I've been very disappointed, because as far as I'm concerned, your position insulates you from any interference. Nobody will prevent you from doing what you want if you are determined to be impartial and do what is the right way.
You think she's partial?
I think she is allowed the fact that the MPP appointed her into that position to somehow cloud her impartiality. I think so. I think she should be determined as a person to want to establish complete impartiality, regardless of who is involved. Your job as a referee is to simply be a neutral arbiter. And that would actually be a great legacy. For you to be perceived as almost like a pliant tool in the hand of the ruling party, I think it's not good enough. And somehow the massive view all over this country, I'm sure no matter who you talk to, most people will tell you that compared to Afarijan, compared to Charlotte to say, the perception around Jean Mensah has not been a great perception at all. Some way, somehow, she's allowed herself to become too pliant in the hand of the ruling party, and that should not be. Because you're supposed to make sure you create the situation where you can be trusted by all. You can be trusted to be a neutral arbiter. After all, you can determine who wins power. Your job is simply to make sure the processes are fair, that the people of Ghana must speak and decide who wins. You cannot arrogate yourself the right of imposing any party on any Ghanaian. Allow the people of Ghana to do that. That is the job of the people of Ghana. Yours is simply to do your job as fairly and as impartially as possible. I would say personally, I know Jean Mensah very well. We were actually mates in the university.
Okay.
So I know Jean Mensah. I've known her family for quite a long time as well. But when it comes to some of these considerations, we're going to make sure we put our foot down and ensure that things are done well. It's not about me, it's not about her, it's about the country. And when it comes to the country, you must put aside what you call personal issues and make sure the right thing gets done. And we'll make sure that
the former General Secretary, now Chairman, I'm sure you heard the tape where he says, well, literally didn't have the pink sheets, the full complement of the pink sheets at the time you were heading for court. And so he couldn't present it. Lawyer Chachichi Kata is said to have said that, look, if this is what we're taking, then go and find somebody else, and all of those conversations. The NPP has said, look, you owe Ghanaians an apology for that, because you rode on the emotions of Ghanaians to tell them that you had won the elections when in fact you had not been able to fully collate your results. Do you really owe Ghanaians an apology?
I don't know about apology, owing Ghanaians an apology. But I think the NPP does clearly know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that they had to resort to all kinds of gangsterism to take away seats that they hadn't won in the 2020 election. They know that. They know exactly that. And I think in their heart of heart, they know that they actually lost the parliamentary election. They know. And so when you're talking about owing an apology, if there's anyone that owes an apology to the people of Ghana, it will be them, who actually had to resort to gangsterism, sending thugs to attack people and kill people in the name of winning power. They are the people who owe an apology. I've never heard in our history from 1992 any group that has shown that kind of desperation on election day to the point of 8 people died simply because a group is desperate to cling on to power. So if there's any group that actually be owing an apology, it will not be NDC, it will be the NPP for taking this country to the low levels where people had to be shot and killed on an election day simply because a group is desperate for power. So in terms of perfecting of our result collation, I'm the first to admit that we should do much better. We should definitely do much better. But that does not at all take away the blame that actually should go to the Electoral Commission. I don't think it's a wrong thing at all to say that the electoral commissioner, through her own attitude, clearly showed that she was not on top of her job. That she had shown the lack of capacity to have the proper results, collated at her own level. No wonder she brings one result, changes to the next, changes to the next. When you have a situation like that, you clearly create a complete lack of confidence. Complete lack of confidence. And no political party will look at you and trust that you are a fair arbiter who is ready to do what is right.
Because you went back to the 8 people, if it does happen again, touch wood, in 2024, what will be your approach as General Secretary?
You mean if what happens?
If again we see violence, we see soldiers shooting, and we see all those things happen, what will be your approach?
I prefer not to disclose that. I prefer not to disclose that.
Will it be boot for boot?
But I can tell you that once beaten, twice shy.
Will it be boot for boot?
Once beaten, twice shy. That's all I can say. Once beaten, twice shy.
Would you respond in equal measure?
And it's
Ayawaso West Wagon is fresh on my mind.
Yeah.
Techiman South is fresh on my mind. Ablekuma is fresh on my mind.
It's in the interest of the MPP not to try that again. It's in their interest not to try that again.
How do you mean?
Yeah, it's in their own interest not to try that again. That's all. That's all I can say. It's in their own interest not to try that again. They are not the only party that have the capacity to do what they've done. So it's in their own interest not to try that again.
John Mahama, Kojo Bonsu, Dr. Kwabena Dufo. They are the 3 forerunners now seeking to be president or flag bearer, to represent the NDC in the coming elections. People say it's John Mahama who is the most marketable of them all. The other 2 disagree. They say, look, we also have a chance. It's a democracy. What do you say?
What I would tell you is that the history of our country clearly shows that people with, should I call it, a much longer presence in the political space tend to have a great advantage in terms of moving ahead. Ronis, after 10 years of the PNDC, clearly had advantage. He won power easily in the first election in 92 and also in 1996. Then after that, Kufuor, who clearly also had this same period of being known, in the political space for quite a long time. He emerged and became the leader in the country ahead of other people. Then subsequently it was Prof. Mills, who also, from 1996 as vice president, tried in 2000, did not win. Tried again in 2004, did not win. In 2008, won. Then came, I would say John Mahama briefly, because he was the vice president. He won, the election in 2012. Then, of course, Nana Akufo-Addo, having also been there for a long time, clearly taken over. So you could see that the history clearly does show that John Mahama is in a much better position, given that history. But of course, it doesn't prevent others from having their own hope as well, that they could also be able to pull a surprise. But as a party, our ways is to make sure we create, should I call it, a fair and fair playing field that will allow the will of the NDC people, from manifesting. And I believe that will of the NDC, just as we saw in this recent Congress, the will of the NDC people will be clearly expressed again. You can be sure about one thing, these delegates clearly show that they want power, and they're not ready to gamble. They're not ready to gamble at all. And that's what you saw happening, on Saturday at the Congress. Not ready to gamble. And I'm very sure it's the same thing that may happen.
The NPP has what they call orphan constituencies. That's constituencies where they don't have sitting MPs or which are not their strongholds.
Both NDC and NPP.
Exactly. And they actually hold congresses or conferences, ahead to determine that before they go to their safer seats. It does appear, for example, if you look at a seat like Okaikwe South, you have had candidates from pilots to whatever. You have never won it before since the Nana Akomiya days up until now. And there's so many of those seats. Will anything change in 2024?
No, you need to appreciate that. It's not just in Ghana. All over the world. If, for example, you go to the US, there are states that are naturally red states and others that are naturally blue states. And no matter what you do, you are not going to be able to flip from red to blue. You understand? So it is the same also in our part of the world, where you have some seats that are traditionally NPP and others that are traditionally NDC. But what you do is to make sure that as much as possible, even if you are not able to win, at least you work hard enough to be able to push your numbers, especially the presidential numbers in those places. Because don't forget, when it comes to the presidential result, it's all become what we call one result. You pull it together from different constituencies. So if you're able to push harder to make sure even the places where you're not winning seats, at least your presidential numbers are good enough, that it becomes a great thing. So for example, some of these candidates who run for you in orphan constituencies are pretty aware of the hard task to be able to flip those seats. They know. But their inspiration often is to work hard to see how the party's fortune can at least be increased. And once the party's fortune is increased, they have also done their best to help in the party. So our system of reward has to always take into consideration that there are people who may not win the seat, but their hard work helps us to be able to have a better performance presidentially.
I know you don't support monocracy in politics, but it looks like it's becoming a mainstay in our politics. What do you think of it, especially relative to political party funding that will prevent people from inducing others to vote in a certain pattern by treating them?
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a cultural issue. That's the way I look at it. It's a cultural issue. And it's not just here. I think all over Africa, you see the same problem. People believe that once they are dealing with anything that has to do with politics, they must always receive some kind of reward before they do whatever they do. So that's why, for instance, when, for example, you go to the US, and let's say you are running for an office, you are capable of getting donations coming from individuals.
Right.
Somebody's donating $5, another person donates $10. And you're able to put together all these donations, and that accumulates into millions of dollars. But in our part, the thinking is that, no, why should I be giving you money? You actually are supposed to be giving me money because you are the one going for the higher position. So it's a whole cultural mindset here. And that gradually must change. It must change. When people start to appreciate that, the only way you can own the process, the only way you can own the political parties is when it is that you are making a contribution to the sustenance of those political parties. That changes. I think to a certain extent also the problem has been...
But do we have what it takes to do that? Can the country afford it, especially in this debt-distressed situation? We're in crisis, literally.
I agree. But in truth, these same individuals belong to different groups. Some of them are social groups, like, for example, old schools. Some of them belong to cultural groups. Some of them belong to church groups. And they are able to make contributions to all those groups without problem.
All right.
They have no problem at all, monthly contribution to all those groups. But as soon as it becomes politics, no need for a contribution, because politics, you must bring money from the top, which I'm saying again is a cultural mindset. And therefore, we as a group, as a culture, and here I'm talking not just NDC, but also MPP and all of that, must see what it is that can be done, that can change the whole mindset. For people to kind of appreciate that, listen, the fact that you are dealing in politics doesn't mean that money must always flow from the top.
Right.
We can own the process by, for example, in this recent Congress, President Mahama made an appeal for donations from individuals to be able to help to organize a Congress. I'm glad to say that there was quite a lot of good response from ordinary people. Somebody contributed 10, another person 20, 30, different people did that. And this contribution, when you pull it together in terms of thousands of people, works well a lot. That's a culture we need to gradually appreciate. We need to gradually appreciate that culture. And I think it will come over time. It will come over time.
You heard the MP for Subing, Eugene, and the N95, as I like to call them, openly disagreeing with their government. Now, he's come back to say that he doesn't care if candidates are sponsored against him to take a seat from him, because it does appear that's become the norm. If you disagree with the regime, you suffer for it. Is that healthy for a democracy?
I think so. I think the more we can have men and women who belong to the two political parties, the two main political parties, having what I call the courage of conviction, the better it is for our future.
But they suffer the consequences.
That is true. They suffer the consequences. That's why they also need to pray that they will have leaders in those parties, leaders who admire courage of conviction. I personally love people who have got the courage of conviction. Even if I disagree, the very fact that you have the courage to stand for what you believe, for me, is admirable. I believe that my party was founded by a man who had absolute courage of conviction. A man who believed that no matter what, once you believe in something, you must stand up and be able to speak about it. And that's important, for the health of our democracy. But of course, it's one thing having courage of conviction and one thing pursuing your own personal agenda. Once it is an agenda that is good for the collective, it should be considered. This is a good one.
Lawyer Yaboedwa, former vice president of the GJA, has made calls for Chairman General Asiedu Nketia to to be off the Parliamentary Service Board because now he leads a political party.
He leads a political party.
That's right. What do you say?
I'm wondering what you mean by he leads a political party.
He's now chairman of the NDC.
But he was the general secretary of the party all this while. And the general secretary actually is the chief executive of the party. So if actually there's one person who is really the one in charge of the party day-to-day running, is the general secretary. The chairman is almost like the chairman of a board. So in terms of that position, it's much more of a, it's not even as what you call as day-to-day in charge of running of a party as the general secretary is. And he has been a general secretary of the party. And if he never had a problem with that, why is he having a problem now? I'm wondering.
So you disagree with him?
Completely. In fact, if he actually wanted to make that position, he should have made it right from the very beginning as general secretary.
He believes that, look, the Parliament is supposed to be in the center, is supposed to hold government accountable, the Speaker is supposed to be neutral, and the people who are supposed to be advising or sitting with the Speaker must also be neutrals, not people who have either left or right or lower left, all of that.
I think it's just hypocrisy. It's just hypocrisy. I mean, these are some of the same individuals who actually never spoke when MPP MPP does stuff. Somehow they come alive only when it becomes the opposite, and the NDC is, as it were, concerned. And that actually, I think, is a problem of this country. And he, in particular, has shown that bias forever. I mean, these are the people who pretend in the system to be neutral, but clearly these are people who are wearing MPP garment. I consider these people nothing but hypocrites, and I despise hypocrites. I have no time for hypocrites at all. So that call is just a call of hypocrisy. I have no time for it.
Your country is in distress and has even postponed the payment of external debts. We are in crisis. You have been a deputy minister for finance and also the Agric Ministry. Both are cabinet, situations, and you are in the thick of things. What do you see? Well, the government says we're trying to solve it, but what do you see? Are they really solving it? Are they going the right way?
I mean, it's basically the chicken coming home to roost, Johnny. It's basically the chicken coming home to roost. You didn't need to be a rocket scientist to see that this is exactly where it was heading. That you rode into power, deceiving the country, that somehow you were moving the country from taxation into production. And you come into office and you play to the gallery by removing what you call taxes and creating celebration in Abosiokai, lying to the people that somehow you were coming to remove taxes from them. You lie to them that you have the means, the creative means to be able to raise revenue. And then over time, it showed that you actually had no ideas at all. Your whole consideration was how to literally use what you call a capping system, which capping system was effectively destroying virtually all the key investment in our country. Investment at the district level through capping of the district assembly common fund. Investment in education through capping of the GET fund. Investment in health through capping of the national health insurance. And that's the kind of process that has been on. Then, of course, in the process of doing all this, you accumulate such massive debts. I mean, completely unprecedented in our history. You made a debt of 120 billion at the time you came. And within a matter of just a few years, you've gone far, far more than that debt, which is the historical debt from Kwame Nkrumah all the way to the end of 2016 when John Mahama exited. Now, so when you do such a thing, you clearly are digging a big hole. Now, so, and you also notice that between 2017 and 2018, the only time that they were able to have some semblance of economic good performance was largely because of what they inherited when they came into office at the end of 2016. As soon as they exited the IMF program in 2019, things started going down again. And so, for me, all these problems that we're having today is simply a basic issue of the chicken coming home to roost, that they have sowed the wind and they are now reaping the whirlwind. For me, when you are in a crisis of this nature, the first thing you want to do is to be humble and start telling the truth. But it looks like they are so incapable of telling the truth. They cannot, for example, admit that this problem has been our doing. Open up to the people of Ghana that these are mistakes that we have made. No, they are too proud. They are too proud. And they also believe that somehow you can continue deceiving the people by throwing dust in their eyes and pretending that the problems are external and not.
It's kind of real the problem.
Oh, it cannot be an individual.
Should he go?
Don't forget. No, I'm saying it cannot be just.
Should he go?
To be honest with you, I find it even difficult to understand why he himself would not have resigned long ago. He should not actually be waiting for somebody to push. He actually should have been taking a jump long ago. I mean, for the sake of his own image, he should have long, left that position. Because I don't know of any finance minister who would preside over this situation that has brought this country down on its knees. That for the first time in our history, you actually are not able to even honor your debt obligation. It's never happened.
He says the tag of incompetence is too harsh on him. You heard that?
I'm surprised about that. Because that clearly is what it is. We are talking about, just a combination of what I call dishonesty and incompetence. It's a toxic mix of the two. Lack of character and constantly quoting the Bible while at the same time lying to people. And then, of course, clearly showing that you have no idea about how to make this happen. And that's been a problem. Now, so if you have a situation where leadership is lying in one hand and also clearly showing that they are incompetent, that's a real problem for the country. And Ken, I'm surprised that sometimes I wonder why would people want to hang on to position? Why? For what? I knew Ken way before politics. I was a stockbroker. He was a stockbroker as well, and we happened to be working virtually in the same building. My company was on the third floor, and Databank was on the fifth floor. So I knew Ken. I never knew him to be somebody who was interested in politics. So I was quite a bit shocked when he eventually moved into politics. And the Ken I knew back then, I'm actually surprised that you will not walk away from all this, because you did a fantastic job as a stockbroker outside of politics. So what prevents you from walking away? Do
you think that he's holding on to something, keeping something, because if he leaves, the mess will be exposed?
I don't know. I can't tell. I really can't tell. But there definitely must be a reason why he's holding on. He's clinging on.
But the dollar is coming down. Fuel prices are dropping.
Yeah.
Transport fares have dropped. You should be happy for government.
Yeah, I'm happy for the people, not about government. I'm happy for the people that at least temporarily there's some kind of reprieve. But the truth of the matter is that this is artificial stuff.
Artificial?
Yeah, they're artificial.
How?
It's normal. When it is that you have a situation where the massive importation in your country is not happening, because somehow you put a system in where people cannot have access to, for example, the dollars to be able to do their importation, you create an artificial appreciation of your currency. The same applies to different things that are happening as far as portfolio investors are concerned. So it's not anything to celebrate at all. These are just short-term things that are artificial. The real sustainable situation is what it is we see as soon as this artificial wind stop blowing. We see exactly the real value of our
Fifi, Fiavi, Kwetey, can we trust you to win 2024? That's what an NDC person asked me to ask you.
You can trust that we will give it 100% and more. That you can trust. But don't forget, I always say, at the end of the day, it's the will of the people. It's the millions of Ghanaians who will make the final judgment call. And we believe that we will make it difficult for them not to choose us. And that's what we're going to do. Work hard and let them have confidence enough to be able to give us the mandate. At the end of the day, that's all we can do. Give it the best shot and allow the people of Ghana to make the final determination.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Franklin, Fifi, Fiavi,
I wish all your viewers a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year in advance.
Thank you. It's General Secretary, brand new, of the NDC. The sports and more here on New Day. Stay with us. We'll be right back.